most of them have encountered some sort of problem with that provider, and that provider, couldn't handle, for example, trigger-based emails, or it couldn't handle a certain volume, or maybe they were just really crap in the US and they were much more focused on Europe. And it was by talking to all these people and kind of building up a matrix of the things that we wanted out of these tools that we figured out, which email provider would actually work best for our specific situation, which is trigger-based emails with a heavy component in the US. That was our process for selecting what tool to use for that particular problem. And again, with the kind of the real-time stuff, what we did is we talked to a bunch of startups, and we heard that ActiveMQ was really good. So we started using that, but then we sent 2 of our developers to Scotland and Rails to sort of meet other startups, and we found out that actually RabbitMQ is potentially a better tool for the exact problem that we're trying to solve. So what that kind of led me to realize is actually, if you want to be a sort of startup that is focusing on your core and is using third-party tools to solve a lot of the other problems, you really need to be spending time with other startups and understanding which tools they're using. And that's really where one of the kind of hidden values of investors comes into play, because investors are great for helping you meet other startups that are solving kind of hard problems. And if I want to go and talk to Twitter about what they're using for their real-time message bus, Twitter are very, very busy right now trying to stop the fail whales from happening. So if I'm going to get that information out of them, I need to be a trusted lead to get me in there and talk to them and spend an hour with their head of ops figuring out exactly what they're using for their message bus. So that's one way in which investors can really help you. But the other thing that can really help you is just participating in a community of other startups. So for example, we organized this meetup for about 60 developers called the Hacker Meetup, which is the biggest kind of hacker meetup in London. And that really came from my experiences with Y Combinator, being around other startups and seeing how valuable it is to be able to ask other people about, hey, what is this issue with Rails that I've heard about? Should we be thinking about using this instead on the back end? Or, it's really annoying that I can't get real-time data out of Google Analytics. Have you found something that can help me do that? Or what do you guys use for bug tracking, etc.?
And how do we find where that meetup is, and was there a URL or something?
Oh, there's a Facebook group for it, so just search for, I think it's uk.news.yc, because it came out of the news.y combinator.
uk.news.yc.
Yeah, on Facebook, yeah. So that's one way you can do it. Another way you can do it is by being around startups a lot. So maybe taking an office space with other startups, so you've got that direct connection. So we've got an office space where we've got some spare space for other startups to sublet off us. We've got 5 startups in there now, and it's just great for me to be able to go across the room to Who Sampled, for example, who are working on some sampling stuff, and just say, how are you finding the Music Brains database to work with as a third-party tool? Or go across to Fuzzwitch and saying, who are really absolute masters of Flex, and say, how does this particular Flex problem work with respect to this tool that I'm thinking about using for this problem? So that's the sort of preamble, and the message really is, if you want to be really, really good at one thing, you have to figure out how to do the other things that will kind of naturally come up with that, with the minimum amount of internal investment of resources. And in my opinion, the best way to do that is using great third-party tools that someone has already built for that purpose. And the best way for startups to find great third-party tools is through other startups. So I'll just go through this, the start of this wiki.
Just got 2 minutes left.
Cool. And I'll talk about a few specific areas where I think there's real value. So search is one area. We had our own in-house search, just indexing our database, and then we started looking at Lucene, and actually figured out that Solr, which kind of interfaces well with Rails, was probably the best thing for us. And since doing that, we've been able to add new search functionality within hours that would have otherwise taken us loads of time to build in-house. For performance, I mentioned YSlow earlier, and that's a really great tool that Yahoo developed to help you identify why your website might be slow in certain ways, so you can run through certain templates and understand, how to speed them up. New Relic's another tool that, quite Rails specific, but we found really useful for diagnosing how to speed up your website, or, how to resolve performance issues. For forms, if you guys haven't seen Wufoo, it's a great startup that came out of Y Combinator, and the thing that they do really well is forms, and that's the only thing they do well because it's the only thing they focus on. And so if you guys have to do something unusual with forms, Wufoo might be a good solution for you. The the analytics, obviously there's different types of analytics bringing different types of solutions, whether it's kind of allowing you to be kind of more effective with regression or kind of cross-correlation stuff, or doing real-time stuff, or maybe just having a more exportable API. On video, I've heard really great things about Uyala, and I know that Juiced are using them, and Juiced are obviously, pushing the boundaries in terms of some of the online premium video stuff. Crowd Factory, again, on the social side. If you want to have like a social site, maybe you want to do like some sort of Twitter-style asymmetric followee kind of thing on your site, and you don't want to have to worry about the scaling problems of that in terms of as a social graph builds up, you can use Crowd Factory to use their API to effectively outsource a chunk of that problem. You want to do some location stuff. GeoNames is great. Google have a geocoding API you can use. On email, the guys at Huddle initially recommended MailChimp, but I know they're switching to something else, so maybe talk to Andy about that. But in general, there are a lot of different people who can help you out with email.
Hey, we want to get some questions in.
Cool. So explore the wiki at your will, and feel free to contribute. And that's what I'm really hoping will happen. That this wiki will become a really vibrant place for startups to share best in class third-party tools with each other. Any questions?
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ian. Time for just a couple of quick questions from anybody. Okay, I'll jump down there.
Hi, I'm Shafkat from NewsCred. Just another tool that we find extremely valuable to find other tools, but also to answer any questions about kind of the business side, sales, marketing, is Hacker News. Yeah. So if you're in a startup and you're not on Hacker News, I'd probably recommend getting on it right away. It's news.ycombinator.com. It's run by Paul Graham, started by Paul Graham, and it's absolutely very, very useful.
Exactly. Anyone else?
It's Mike from Kennet Partners. What's your view on vendor risk here if you've sort of integrated these tools quite closely into the sort of operations of your business? I mean, what happened to one of them fault?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the first thing is you can mitigate that slightly by understanding the relationship that other startups have with that particular vendor. So, we've certainly been looking at that quite carefully with our email decision, because we're going to be investing quite a lot of upfront capital in getting that working right. And just understanding how they're positioned on our kind of revenue, how their revenue's doing, etc. So one thing we did with that is we hung out with a startup that had done some research where they compiled a list of every single email provider and their annual kind of published turnover, number of clients, etc., and used that as a way to kind of figure out whether the vendor was going to kind of be stable over the next year and a half. So again, I think talk to other startups, get a sense of how strong that company is and a kind of how strong that company's financial position is. And then again, just like APIify everything so you can swap in and out as much as possible and treat it like a black box.